Hello everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Recent Things. We are at the end of 2024 and today, just like in my previous years, I'm going to be showcasing 12 months of wreaths. So I'm going to go right from January, February, March. Like for February, I'm going to show a Valentine's Day wreath. So a nice large compilation video for you celebrating 1 full year of wreaths and occasions. Today, 12 months of wreaths. Why don't I just get started and I'll show you what I selected. I'm going to be using an 18-inch grapevine wreath today. And I'm also going to be using this artificial snow spray. First time I've ever used it, along with these little cranberry or berry picks, these wooden picks that have some flocking on them to look like snow, and these cute adorable ornament owls. This mini pine picks pack that I purchased from the Dollar Tree. And again, from the Dollar Tree, we have these cedar picks in white, and I'm going to be using my regular crafting utensils today to create this project. I start off using that artificial snow spray, and I'm just going to spray a couple of layers just all around our grapevine wreath to create a little snow effect on it. I did spray this in the garage and I suggest you do so as well. There was some fumes that came from it, so I didn't want to do it inside. And now all I'm going to do is go around that grapevine wreath and I'm just going to cut off kind of the twigs that are in the way or bothering me. You can do the same if you want, or you can leave it just as is. And to create my wreath today, I always like to have all of my floral picks and attachments all around me, and then I usually just cut off some lengths of those floral picks because they're a little bit too long sometimes, and I'm going to start with the back layer. So that's how I usually start. I start by layering. I start at the rear end, or I can't believe I just said rear end. I start at the back end and I fill that up first with these white cedar picks, but not all of them. I'm going to save some of them just in case I want to use some later on. So for now, I'm just going to do this, and then I'm going to add some at the side as well, just to create some more interest there. And then I'm going to cut those berry picks down a little, glue them in, stuff them into the grapevine, and then I can bend them all around. The beauty part of these wire picks is you can bend them around. I usually bend them on a little bit of a curve. You can totally leave them straight if you want. I just prefer it curved a little bit. And once I get them in there, I add a little bit more hot glue just to make sure they're nice and secure. Of course, I'm going to place my owls here, kind of figure out where I want them, and then I'm going to glue them in place. Once they're both glued down, I'm just going to leave them for a bit to dry, and once they're fully dry, then I will continue on adding some more of those beautiful picks that I purchased from the dollar stores. And again, you can just chop them down to size, glue them on. You can stick them right in that grapevine wreath. That's the beauty part of a grapevine wreath. You don't even have to glue them if you don't want to. You can just totally stick it right in there and they stay. And then of course you can use the picks afterwards if you want to disassemble the wreath. For this one, I knew I wanted to keep it together all the time and use it for winter, so I am gluing everything down, and I'm just adding some of those greenery picks. Now I'm going to come in and fill that back end a little bit more with those white cedar picks. I pick up my wreath, kind of look at it, see how it is, and I also turn it around a little bit. That's a little bit of a trick that I do. Don't just look at it one way. Stand up, stand behind it, stand around it, turn it upside down, turn it sideways so you can see where you need to fill. And as soon as I flipped it over, I knew I needed to fill that one little area. And here I am adding some finishing touches with those branches that are flocked. I loved these. They kind of blend in with the wreath, but it adds some texture, which I love that. And of course, I just bend those into place, and look at that. My beautiful winter-themed wreath is almost complete. I'm trying to figure out if I want those snowflakes in there, and I decide that's too much. Let's stop here, because look at the end result with those two cute little owls there, our bright red and green cranberry picks, along with those pine picks as well. I just love how the red pops against that white background. And those two cute, adorable owls again. I mean, come on. They are just so cute. And I also get a lot of questions on how I hang my wreaths. I use typically a wreath door hanger. There's one right here. It's got like a little snowflake theme on, which I think is perfect for this wreath. You can purchase those anywhere at the dollar store, the Dollar Tree. Using that heart-shaped wreath form. This time I'm using 6-inch Deco Mesh in the color of red, and I'm using 2 packages along with these little hearts and these little picks that are all glittery. And I'm going to be using these beaded necklaces, but I'm only going to be using the red beaded necklace for this. I'm going to use 2 of those in total. And these little heart-shaped containers, they're clear. And I'm going to be using glitter glue for the first time today as well, along with my regular crafting utensils. First, I am going to open up those containers, and I'm just going to take off that little plastic loop that's right at the top. And then I'm going to dump in a whole bunch of this glitter glue. Now, I love the shape and I love the size of the hearts here, but I wanted more sparkle, so I thought if I just did a layer on the inside of the glitter glue, we'll get a nice big glittery heart. And I ended up using a ton of this glitter to get the idea, or to get the way I wanted it to look, being all glittery, etc., etc. And once I've used my paintbrush to scatter it all around, I'm going to let that dry for a little bit before I continue. And to start off with our wreath frame, I'm taking my Deco Mesh, and this time I'm actually just going to wrap my Deco Mesh around the wreath frame. So all of you new wreath makers out there, this is a great idea to kind of dive into Deco Mesh or wreath making. Actually, all of these ideas today for all of these heart-shaped wreath forms are perfect for beginner wreath makers, where you're not using a lot of mesh, not doing a lot of cuts. You just wrap it around and you see the final result here before I add all of my little embellishments. So I'm just opening up all of my packages. I like to have everything around me, and I'm cutting the ends off of those picks. I just want the hearts. I don't need the little sticks. And I'm going to start with adding a layer of those pink hearts. Our background is red, so if I put the red hearts right on top, it's going to hide a little bit. It's going to camouflage itself. So I thought if I did a layer of the pink hearts first, and then I start adding a layer of the red on top of the pink, the red's going to pop a little bit more than if I just put those red hearts right on that red Deco Mesh. And you can see here, I'm just building it up. I'm using the larger hearts first, and then I'm going to use these smaller hearts to add on some more depth and some more interest, and add it like a little cluster that's coming apart or spreading all over our wreath. But I'm not covering all the Deco Mesh because I do want to see a little bit of it, so I cover pretty much the left-hand side. And with my beads, what I'm going to do is add a little line of hot glue just right on the edge there, and then I'm going to add those beads right in the hot glue right around the very edge, creating more interest and more texture, more color, and of course more glitter with those beads, more shininess with those beads. And we all love the glitter and all love the shininess on our wreaths. We like our wreaths to pop and stand out. Once I come to the end, I'm just going to cut off the excess, and I'm just going to make sure it's all nice and level. And then once the outside is all done, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the inside of my wreath. So I just lay down a line of hot glue, and then I'm just going to add those beads into the hot glue there and finish that inner corner, or that inside I should say. Fill it up with those beads again, and I'm almost done. And the final result, look at how this just adds a little bit of panache to our wreath. And once my heart is all dry with all the glitter on the inside, I'm going to take a little bead, a little strain of beads I should say, maybe there's about 4 or 5 beads on there, and that's going to be attached right to the center. So I attach the bead to the heart itself, position it, add a little more hot glue right into the center where I want it, and then I'm going to attach the other end of that bead into the hot glue so that little heart hangs right there in the center I'm going to let that dry for a bit before I bother it and move it around. But at the same time, I thought I wanted to add some beads onto the actual heart where the Deco Mesh is, just to kind of tie everything together. So I cut the little beads, and then I'm going to add little dollops of hot glue just here and there, not too many. I think in total I did about 7 of them. And then I'm just going to take those beads and put that right into the hot glue, just adding a little touch of those beads so we tie the whole project together. And speaking of the project, here is our final result, our beautiful Deco Mesh wreath that we wrapped instead of doing a curly method or a bubble method, along with that big beautiful glittery heart right in the center. And we can't forget our pink and red glittery hearts all around the outside as well. That beautiful cluster coming around with those little individual beads we cut and placed on our wreath. Look at that glittery heart center. Love how that turned out. I'm going to be using the 14-inch wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree, along with their 6-inch Deco Mesh in 3 different colors. And I found these really cool masks. I bought a whole bunch of them. I'll figure out which ones I want to use later, but they were so fun. And this Mardi Gras sign comes from the Party City. It was wood. I loved finding this. And I'm going to be using some gold ornaments. This is left over from Christmas. Now you can use ribbon if you want. I'm not using it today, but that's just an option for you. And I'm going to be using my regular crafting utensils today to create this project. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap my 14-inch wire wreath frame with Deco Mesh. I'm using purple. You can use any color you want. I'm just gluing it down using my handy dandy little tool to get all that glue in there. Once that's dry, then I'm just gonna wrap that Deco Mesh all the way around. And I'm not really being too careful. I'm not gonna see this layer. And once I'm done, I'm just gonna do my final wrap around, add some glue down onto the back, bring that Deco Mesh over, pull it nice and tight, and then bring back that tool and press that Deco Mesh into the glue. Cutting off the excess, and now I'm going to add a second layer of the same purple Deco Mesh. Now I'm going to use 2 full rolls to wrap around the 14-inch wire wreath frame. If you're using a larger wreath frame like an 18-inch one, you'll probably need maybe 3 or 4. The reason why I'm wrapping it around twice is because the first layer actually didn't cover all of the wire. I wanted it to be a little bit more covered than that. You can kind of still see the wire. You can kind of see there on the right-hand side through that first layer, so I figured a second layer would hide that wire nicely. And of course, this is a great way if you're a first-time wreath maker working with Deco Mesh. You can just use this method and you can still create a beautiful wreath using Deco Mesh. And of course, here we are gluing that last little bit down, bringing that handy dandy tool back in, pushing that Deco Mesh, and then cutting that excess off. And now our base wreath is all ready. Look at this beautiful purple color. I love it. I am going to be cutting my Deco Mesh at 8-inch increments. Here I have a royal blue color, so I'm using 3 different colors of Deco Mesh, and I'm cutting all 3 at 8-inch mark. So this is the royal blue. I also have a green here as well that I'm cutting at 8 inches, and a purple, the same one we used in the first of the video wrapping that wire. So again, for the wreath, I am using 3 different colors of the Deco Mesh. Purple, I'm using 3 rolls. Green, actually, I'm only using 1 roll. Royal blue, I'm using 1 roll. And we're going to create 6 bundles of 4 pieces of Deco Mesh each. And each one of my Deco Mesh colors, I'm cutting 8 pieces at 8-inch lengths. And to create our little bundle, we're just going to grab our royal blue, and I'm just going to roll it up and create a little tube shape. And then I'm just going to place that right in between my piece fingers to hold that in place while I can curl up my next piece of Deco Mesh. I'm going to do the exact same thing, roll it up into a tube, and place it in between my piece fingers. Since I only have 3 colors and I'm going to be using 4 pieces of Deco Mesh per bundle, I'm going to double up that royal blue, and I'm just going to create another tube and this is our first bundle. I'm going to attach a pipe cleaner right at the center, twisting it just to make sure it's nice and secured, and there our first bundle is created. One more time, I'm just going to take our piece of Deco Mesh, doesn't matter which color you choose first, create a little tube, and I'm going to do that for another color. This here is the green one that I'm creating my tube, and then our last color, that royal blue, creating that tube once again and placing in between my fingers. And since I'm putting 4 pieces of Deco Mesh, I'm going to double up on this bundle with the green. And in total, I am making 6 bundles of these little Deco Mesh bundles, adding that pipe cleaner on there, twisting it to make sure it's nice and secured, and we have our next bundle all ready to go. And I'm just going to continue making those bundles. Again, I'm making 6 in total. I'm only going to add this as a little bit of an embellishment, not to fill the whole wreath, so that's the reason why I'm only doing 6 bundles. And here we go. I have everything laid out in front of me. I have my sign, my bundles, my mask, and these beads I got from the Dollar Tree as well. They are just beaded necklaces from the Mardi Gras theme, and I just cut those little plastic ends off to create little strands of beads, and here are those gold ornaments. Now it's time to create, and this is my favorite process. I love starting out and just kind of having an idea of what I want to create, but it really hasn't evolved yet. I just kind of have an idea. So I love this process when I'm putting everything together. I'm just going to glue that Mardi Gras sign down there, make sure it's nice and secure with a whole bunch of hot glue. And now I'm going to add those bundles. So I'm just going to open up those pipe cleaners and put them around the back, and then I'm just going to twist them about 3 or 4 times and cut off the excess. I'm going to do 3 of the bundles above the sign, and then I'm going to do 3 of the bundles below the sign using the same process, opening up that pipe cleaner, wrapping it around both ends, and then twisting it together around the back, using my scissors to cut off the excess. Now this next step is completely optional if you want. I'm just fluffing it up right here. I love to fluff. And then of course I add a little hot glue right at the ends, and that's going to secure my pipe cleaners together. And now I'm working on the other side. I'm going to attach those 3 bundles again, cutting off the excess. And then once I've got those all attached, I'm happy with how they look. I'm also going to add some hot glue just to keep that all nice and secure. And look how it's looking so far with that little bundle of Deco Mesh, and of course our Deco Mesh wrapped wreath as well. Once it's all dry, I decided I'm going to add some of that beaded necklace in gold right around the edge. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a string of hot glue right at the very edge. I'm going to lay my wreath back down again, and then I'm going to push that gold beaded necklace right into the glue all the way around on the outside. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the inside. I'm just going to lay down a line of hot glue, and before it dries, I'm going to work a little quickly, but a little cautiously too, making sure it's nice and secured. And then I'm just going to finish up adding those beads on the inside. And I'm just going to cut off the excess. These beaded necklaces were really easy to cut. I just take a pair of scissors, cut in between the beads, and there you go. We have our beaded embellishment right on the outside. And this wreath is starting to come together, and I'm loving it, and I'm having the time of my life. Here I'm adding the masks. This one is going right at the top. I decided to use the green, gold, and white one, and as well this full gold one, just adding a whole bunch of hot glue on there and pressing it down and holding it. Then just to cover up those holes in the sign, I'm going to take a couple of the golden ornaments, place those down, and then I'm going to grab some more and just kind of periodically put them right into those Deco Mesh bundles, creating some gold and bringing that gold right into that area that we have all on the outside with those beaded necklaces. And I'm just gluing them down, having fun with it. That's the best thing about this. Have fun making your wreaths. And when I got to this point, I was kind of like, you know, we could do a little bit more. And with the bow, I didn't really feel it suited it because I felt it just kind of didn't go. So I decided to just kind of not use the bow. But I then decided I was going to do like little scrolls with my beaded necklaces. So all I did was I laid down a little bit of a pattern with my hot glue, and then I put the beads right in that hot glue. And you can kind of see a scroll effect going on here. And when I come to the end, like I said earlier, these are really to cut. I just chop off the excess, and then look how beautiful this turned out. I just loved doing this. I wanted to do more when I was done, but I decided to stop because enough is enough. I don't want to overdo it. And I'm just laying that line of hot glue down, adding my beads to it, and then chopping off the excess if there's any excess left over. And I'm just doing my finishing touches right here, my final snip, and here we go with our beautiful, grand Mardi Gras colorful wreath. Look at these masks. Look at that sign. I'm in love with these masks from the Dollar Tree. I can't believe how inexpensive they are and yet how well they look with this wreath. And I love that purple wrapped Deco Mesh right around the base with the gold. It just screams Mardi Gras. It screams fun, and it screams festive. Let me know in the comments down below. I'm curious, do you celebrate Mardi Gras, and how do you celebrate Mardi Gras? I would love to hear in the comments right down below. I am using this egg-shaped wire wreath frame. It's about maybe 14 inches, 18 inches, and then this macrame cord that I got from Amazon. I got a whole spool of it. Now, if you don't want to use the Amazon ones, there are ones at the Dollarama and at the Dollar Tree like I'm showing here. You can use those as well. And a whole bunch of pink, white, and purple floral picks, different colors, different sizes, and of course, a miscellaneous bundle of ribbons, along with some of my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I am starting off with that macrame cord or the cotton cord. My idea for this egg-shaped wreath frame is to create a little basket out of it. So I'm kind of deciding where I want it to start the lower half. And I'm attaching it using the hot glue there. You can kind of see me just putting it in there in place. And then I'm going straight across to the other side, placing some more hot glue on there, and that's going to create the bottom of the basket. So that's what all of our florals are going to go. And I'm just adding a few dots of hot glue just to keep it in place. And then I'm going straight across the front. And then I'm going to add a little hot glue right in the center to keep those little ropes together. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to keep hot gluing and then wrapping that all the way around, creating the bottom portion of my little basket. And you can kind of see here I'm adding that hot glue as I go, wrapping it around, and then putting more hot glue right in the center, keeping everything nice and solid. And here we go. I just continue wrapping that around all the way until I get that whole bottom section filled out. Now, another way you can do this is you can cut the rope down to size if you want to save on a little bit of the rope. When you wrap it around, you're wrapping both sides. And if you cut the rope like I'm showing you here, you're only wrapping it around the one side. So you're going to save a little bit of rope. Now, I will say this, the downside to cutting is those frayed edges. There's a lot of them, but I'll show you in a little bit of a trick to stop them from fraying. But again, this is another method you can totally use. As you can see, the front end looks totally the same. Those frayed edges you have to glue down just to get them out of the way, but it saves you some material, it saves you some rope. And again, that top half you can see is nice and clean. The bottom half, it does have some frayed edging, but a little bit of hot glue helps that stay in place and you don't see it on the back side. So it's up to you which method you wish to use. I liked both. Both worked for me. The end result, I loved. So now what I'm going to do is the top half is actually going to be the handle of the basket. So we have the bottom portion of the basket where we're going to fill it, and the top half is going to be the handle. So all I'm going to do now is glue my first piece down, and then I'm just going to wrap till my heart's content. And usually how I wrap items, if you've seen my channel before, you'll know that I use my left hand to hold everything in place and my right hand to actually wrap either the Deco Mesh, the ribbon, or here the rope. I find it helps with the left hand kind of pushing it all together and then the right hand feeding it through. And here we go. I'm almost done wrapping. I'm going to get one more in there before I cut it and then glue it. But here's the little trick that I learned. What you can do is you can take some Scotch tape, just take a little piece off, attach that right on the very end, wrap that around, and then cut off that excess, and then that's going to stop it from fraying as well. So here I am just cutting off that excess. I'm not cutting the tape, I'm just cutting the excess off, and now we have a much cleaner cut end of that rope as opposed to all those little flyaways that we had at the bottom. And now I'm just going to glue that together, and once we flip it over, we have our little basket all created, ready for our florals. And here are all my florals, and I'm just going to use my wire cutters just to cut them down to size. You can keep them all together if you wish, and you can kind of bend the ends, but I actually like to cut them down to size, so I'm just going to cut everything down to size. And once I do, I'm just going to glue in, like you can see right here, those florals. I'm starting out with a higher level. So if you have watched my channel before, you know when I do flower arrangements, I like to do 3 different levels. So there's a lower level, a medium level, and a higher level. So I just, with those pink flowers, completed the middle layer and the top layer, which is the highest. And now I'm going to go in with these pink and white florals, creating a lower level. And then of course, adding greenery is so important. It breaks up the color a little bit and just adds a little more color into that floral arrangement as well. Now I'm going to add in some purple along with all those pinks, just really filling up that basket full of beautiful bright florals, because that's what we want to see right now. We are still in winter time and I want to see those bright colors, and I know you probably do as well. And look at that, just beautiful. Here I am just picking it up, making sure I like the arrangement, and I think that's good enough. I'm just going to take my other floral that I have and just set those aside, and I'm just going to keep them for future projects. Here is our little floral wreath, and of course it's not done just yet. We're just going to add a little bit more to it, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some random ribbon and I'm going to cut them about 5 or 6 inches in length. This is just going to be a little, what do they call it? A little rag ribbon, I believe is what they call it. It's nothing big, it's nothing huge, it's just to add a little bit. So I'm using 3 different fabrics, and I'm cutting them all 2 pieces at 6 inches, and I'm using 3 different ribbons. So these are our cut lengths right here. Just 6 inches, 2 pieces each, really nice, really simple, and adds a little interest to our little floral arrangement. And once we have everything cut, I'm just going to put these little ribbon pieces on a crisscross pattern, and then I'm just going to do the same thing for all 3 of those ribbons, just kind of creating a nice little asterisk, if you will, of your ribbon. And then I'm just going to take a little piece of pipe cleaner. It doesn't have to be too big, and I'm just going to fold that in half, grab the center, and then place that pipe cleaner right in there, and then wrap that around, creating just a little bit of our rag ribbon bow. And this is just going to be a little embellishment on our Easter basket. Nothing crazy. You can do a total big bow if you want. I just wanted something just a little bit smaller. It looks like a little star of ribbon, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. We're just going to add that right in the left-hand corner there. Like I said, it's nothing huge. You can totally add a bow if you want. This is my choice. I just decided to do this little bit of a ribbon star here, adding that right on there with some hot glue, holding it in place, and then Finally, I decided I had a little bit of these Easter eggs left over. They're little Easter egg ornaments. And all I do is they come with a little string. I'm just going to pull those off of the eggs. They came off really nice, really easy. I just pulled them right off. And then I'm just going to use my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue those just around every now and then, adding a little bit of Easter flair to our basket floral wreath. And of course, I do love the colors, the pinks and the purples, along with those eggs in there. And I love this macrame cord or the cotton cord with our little ribbon bow star there, just adding a little pizzazz and a little glitter to our floral basket. I'm using an 18-inch grapevine wreath that I found at Michael's. This 2.5 and 1.5 inch wired ribbon. This spray paint, this is in yellow. These pipe cleaners in yellow as well. Now, if you don't want to use Michael's, or if you want a little bit more of a less expensive, you can always find ribbons like these at the Dollar Tree to replace the Michael's ribbons. And Michael's had a buy one get one free, so I had to pick up these tulips. Look at the colors. Love the colors of these tulips. And as well, just a little dupe, these were from the Dollar Tree as well. A little bit less expensive to keep that overall cost down. And of course, I'm going to be using my regular crafting utensils today to create this project. I'm going to start off with my grapevine wreath and a little bit of spray paint. I'm going to shake things up a little bit and spray paint that grapevine wreath this vivid yellow color. And I just love how this turned out. I was so happy with the color of the grapevine wreath. And before we continue on, I'm actually going to make my bow. So I'm starting with 2.5 inch wire ribbon, and I'm using the 16-inch mark. So I'm going to create a tail first, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squish up that ribbon right in between my fingers, put it into my left hand where I'm going to hold everything. Then with the good side facing up, I'm going to do the exact same thing, create a loop, bring that right to my finger where I'm holding everything, and then I'm going to continue on just twisting a little bit, making sure that good side is still facing up. Using that 16-inch mark, we're going to create another loop and bring up that scrunch section right into that left hand. And I'm going to do this over and over again, creating my loops. And then we're going to create another tail and cut at the 16-inch mark. Grabbing a full-length pipe cleaner, I'm going to wrap that right around the center, twisting it a couple of times to make sure it's nice and secured. So we have 3 loops and 2 tails, and this is our first stage of our ribbon. And I'm going to dovetail both of those tails right at the bottom just to kind of add a little more pizzazz. Then I'm going to move along to my 1.5 inch ribbon, and this time I'm going to be squishing it up right at the 14-inch mark. Instead of squishing it up, maybe I should say gathering it up. Gathering sounds a little bit less harsh than squishing it up. So I'm just collecting that ribbon in my left hand. I'm measuring it, gathering it with my right, and I'm creating my loops, and I'm twisting it such that the good side is always facing up. And then once I'm done creating my 5 loops, I'm going to cut the tail, add a little bit of a pipe cleaner. This is just a half pipe cleaner, and then I'm going to dovetail those tails, again adding a little finishing touch. Then we're going to go back to that 2.5 inch wired ribbon, and our mark this time is going to be 12 inches. So first I do my tail, then I do my loops at the 12 inches, just like I'm showing you here, remembering to twist and keeping that good side facing up. We're doing 3 loops and 2 tails. I'm cutting, I'm adding that pipe cleaner with a couple of twists, making sure it's all secured, and then we're going to dovetail those ends to finish it off. And this is our 3rd section. Now we're working on our final section, which is the 4th, and I'm repeating the exact same process. This time I'm just using the 10-inch mark. So I'm creating 3 loops and 2 tails at the 10-inch mark for our final one. Cutting that, adding a twist tie right in the center there, holding it together, and then finishing off those tails with an angled cut, creating a dovetail. Here is our first piece. So this is our first segment of our bow. This is the 16-inch portion that we just did. Now I'm just going to take those pipe cleaners from the 14-inch portion or the next one down and adding them right to the center of that first segment. I'm going to cut off the excess, but don't cut those longer ones. That's how I'm going to attach to our grapevine. And we're just going to repeat the same process, adding our layers all on top, the 16-inch layer, the 14-inch layer, the 12 layer, and then finally our 10-inch layer goes right on top. And then of course, after we've attached everything, we can have fun fluffing up those bows, because I know I love it here, you love to fluff. So here is our final bow all ready to attach to our wreath. And to attach it, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take those long pipe cleaner stems, wrap it around the back, twist it a couple of times, make sure it's nice and secured, and then I'm just going to fold that edge right into the grapevine so it doesn't scratch my door. And then of course, again, fluff, fluff, fluff. We cannot get enough fluffing on this channel. And I know you all love it out there as well, so that's why I show you a little bit of me fluffing every now and then. But our bow is all on. Now I'm going to pull apart these tulip stems. Now, I figured out that all I had to do was pull on the rubber part of the stems and they came off beautifully. So I loved how easy this was, no cutting, just pulling. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can attach your florals to a grapevine wreath. Here you can do like a dry spell. All you have to do is stick it in the grapevine. I'm just showing you here that it does stay in. You just push it right into all those branches and it does stay. Or you can actually just use a pipe cleaner, wrap that around, and that's actually going to hold that in place as well. A great way to reuse your florals by not gluing them. But for myself, I'm going to choose the third option where you can just glue it down and then place it right on that grapevine wreath. So all I am doing, I am gluing everything. I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue on those stems and I am just adding them right in there. And I'm also pushing the stems right into the grapevine itself so it's a little bit more secure. Once I finish that, I'm going to add some leaves on the right hand side is all done. Now time to do the left so the whole thing will be nice and full. And I follow that exact same process on the other side. And I do pick up my wreath from time to time, take a look at it because I want to make sure it's nice and balanced. Once all my tulips are in, I add my leaves. And then of course, we are done looking at and making our beautiful tulip grapevine wreath. And I love how that yellow spray paint just really brought out another level and another dimension to this beautiful springtime grapevine wreath. Look at those tulips, the colors. That bow just adds so much color and so much spring into this. And of course, our spray painted yellow grapevine wreath. Have you ever spray painted a wreath before, or a grapevine wreath actually? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm curious. This is only the second time I've done it, and I love, love, love the results. And I really hope you love this springtime tulip wreath with that gorgeous bow and our spray painted yellow grapevine wreath. I am using a 14-inch wire wreath frame for this wreath, along with 10-inch Deco Poly Mesh. These are 10 inches by 10 yards. This cute little welcome sign. Look at these bees from Amazon. I just thought they were so cute, had to have them. Some black pipe cleaners. And of course, 2.5-inch wired ribbon, along with some 1.5-inch wired ribbon in different patterns and themes, along with some 2.5-inch wide wired ribbon that I had laying around the house, and of course my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I'm going to start off first by making a wreath form. So I am going to be using the outside 2 wires for my outside layer. And then when I'm going to go on the inside, I'm going to use the 2 inside wires. So to start, I'm going to use the anchor with the 2 outside wires. This is a full-length pipe cleaner. I didn't cut it off, so I'm wrapping it around the 2 outside wires, and I'm twisting it a couple of times, and that's going to create our first stem on our working wreath form. I also measured it out to about 4.5, 4.75 inches to add my next one. What I did was I just measured all the way around the wreath, divided by how many stems I wanted, and it came out to about 4.75. So on the outside, I'm going to add 10 of those stems. I'm going to measure each one, and it comes to about that, comes even about. I had to fiddle around with them a little bit to make them a little bit even, but it's a good guideline to use. So I'm finished with my outside. Again, I have 10 of my stems on the outside, and once I have those all in place, I'm going to come in and just add a little bit of hot glue on each side at the top and the bottom of those pipe cleaners. You do not have to do this. It's totally optional. I like to do it on my wreath so I know those stems aren't going to move. Now I'm going to move on the inside. Again, just placing those pipe cleaners on the 2 inside wires. I'm going to be placing 8 stems on the inside, and it's roughly 3.75 inches apart. Now, this was my math in my head. It came out fine on my side. So it depends on the size of wreath frame you use and how many stems you want as well. But it's just a little guideline. If you don't want to use your measuring tool, that's totally okay. You can just do what I showed you there and just eyeball it. And then of course at the very end, I'm just going to hot glue that all in place. And then we have our working wreath form with our 10 stems on the outside and 8 on the inside, all ready for our Deco Mesh. And I'm going to be using the black Deco Mesh first to create our puffs. So this is a puff style method along with added ruffles. And first what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in at the very edge, about an inch or 2, and then I'm just going to gather up that Deco Mesh, keep it in my fingers, come to my first stem, open it up, and then I'm just going to place that Deco Mesh that I've just gathered into my fingers right there in between those 2 pipe cleaners. Now, if you want to start on the center or the inside, you can totally do that. I like to start my wreaths on the outside. So if you start on the inside or the outside, totally up to you. Again, my preference is the outside and then work to the inside, but you can also use the same method working on the inside to the outside. So I have got that beginning of my Deco Mesh right in there with my pipe cleaner, and I am going to use 10-inch increments. So I'm just counting the squares on my board. Each square is 1 inch. I'm going to take that Deco Mesh where I've just placed it, and then I'm just going to stretch it out to the 10 inches, gather that up, pinch it in between my hands, and then I'm going to open up the next available stem that's empty, and that's where I'm going to place that gathered Deco Mesh. Right in between those 2 pipe cleaners, twist it around a couple of times, and look, we've created our first little poof. And again, I'm going to follow the same procedure. So I'm going to line it up, measure out the 10 inches, gather it with my fingers, place it right in between the next available stem, wrap that pipe cleaner around a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secured, and then we just continue that same pattern, measuring 10 inches, putting it into the next available pipe cleaner, and giving it a couple of good twists. Now here I'm working at the very end where we come to the beginning of where we started. So I am going to attach my last puff right at the very beginning pipe cleaner stem that we just did. So here you can see I'm adding it right there on top of our first attachment. And I'm just going to wrap it around, making sure it's nice and secured. And we have our first layer, or the outer layer, of our puffs all made. You can open them up if you want now, or you can do it later. It's totally dependent on you. But our first layer is all done. And now we're going to move to our inner layer. So that's the inner 2 wires where we place those 8 pipe cleaner stems. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure out that 10 inches again. I'm going to use 10 inches for the inside as well. Gather it together, and I'm going to use the first available pipe cleaner stem on the inside. So I haven't cut my Deco Mesh at all. We're just going to keep going with it and do one continuous run, not cutting our Deco Mesh at all. So again, measuring those 10 inches, placing it in between those pipe cleaners, and now we've come to the end where I'm just going to roll it out a little bit, measure my 10 inches. This is my last attachment, And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a little piece off and trim it off with my rotary cutter. So now my Deco Mesh is all trimmed. I'm going to go back to our first attachment on the inside, overlap it, and then I'm going to twist. Look at our final result of our little poof layering for our Deco Mesh wreath. Now for the yellow Deco Mesh, I'm actually going to be using a wood burning tool. So I have a glass cutting board and I'm cutting this Deco Mesh at the 10-inch mark. Now, if you haven't used a wood burning tool, this is a great way to stop the fraying. And I will suggest this and a little cautionary tale, and I'll tell a little bit later on. It's hot. So that wood burning tool is hot, hot, hot. And please, please, please open a window when you use this. I had my window open and my door open. Here is my wood burning tool. Now you can kind of see I did burn myself today. So a little cautionary tale. That tip, wherever you see metal, is hot. Don't put your fingers there. If you don't want to use a wood burning tool, scissors or a rotary cutter works perfectly fine. I have a mat and a cutting board. If you don't want to use that, you can totally use a rule and measure out that 10 inches to cut that yellow Deco Mesh. But my wood burning tool works perfectly for me with that cutting mat and with that clear cutting board as well, made out of glass. So that works for me. It stops the fraying and it worked pretty well. Now it's time to add our yellow Deco Mesh. So it has a natural curl, so I'm going to have the curl facing down, and I'm just going to place it facing down with the manufactured or finished edges on the left and right hand side and our cuts at the top and the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place my thumbs right in the middle at the bottom of our Deco Mesh, have my fingers that are free, and then I'm just going to hold my thumbs down as I walk, and gather that Deco Mesh into my fingers. And that's going to create a little bow tie looking effect. And this is our little added ruffle for our Deco Mesh. So this is the ruffle portion of our poof ruffle or ruffle poof base wreath. And again, we are doing curl side down with our manufactured edges at the left and the right. Hold that thumb down in place, walk those fingers, gathering that Deco Mesh right in the middle, creating a little bow tie effect with a little ruffle in the middle, and then we just place it into those pipe cleaner stems. So I'm going to place one yellow Deco Mesh, and these are 10 inches in length, so it's a 10 by 10 square of Deco Mesh, and I'm going to place one in each pipe cleaner stem, and we have 18 of those stems. So here I am finishing my last one on the outside, just placing that right in there. And you can already see that beautiful contrast of the black and the yellow. And of course the different styles as well, which always add interest to your wreath. Now we're going to be working on the inside and we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to gather that Deco Mesh and now we're going to place it on those inside pipe cleaner stems, twisting it a couple of times. And I am loving how this is looking so far. And I hope you are too. I just love this effect of the poof with the ruffle and the yellow against the black. And I'm just fluffing it up here, but look at how gorgeous this looks already. I am so love with this ruffle poof method. I'm going to create a large bow today. And for my first segment, I'm going to use 14-inch lengths. So right here, I'm measuring out 14 inches. That's going to be a tail. And now I'm going to measure out 14 inches and I'm going to create a 7-inch loop. So all I'm doing is I'm making sure that the good side of the ribbon is facing up. And this is wired ribbon that I'm using. I'm measuring out 14 inches, gathering it with my right hand and bringing it over to my left hand and holding it there. I'm going to twist it at my pinched fingers. Just make sure that that ribbon good side is facing up, gather at the 14-inch mark, bring it together, and I'm only going to create 3 loops for each segment of this, except for the last one, and I'll show you in a bit. And then we're going to create another 14-inch tail. So I'm just going to measure out that 14 inches, and I'm going to cut it with my scissors, take a full-length pipe cleaner, and I'm going to wrap that around right at the center, twist it a couple of times, and then I'm going to create dovetails at the very end of those tails, just cutting on an angle. And look at how that beautiful dovetail finishes those tails. I love doing it. It's my favorite little finishing touch. And we've got our first layer, or our first segment of our big bow. Now for the second one, I'm going to do the exact same procedure, gathering at the 13-inch mark at this point. So I'm doing a tail of 13 inches, 3 loops at 13 inches, and then another tail at 13 inches. Add that pipe cleaner, twist it a couple of times, and then I'm going to dovetail the edges of my tails for this as well. For our third ribbon, I'm going to be doing 12-inch mark now, so 12-inch tail, 12-inch loops, which creates 6-inch loops, and then another 12-inch tail. Twist it with a pipe cleaner again, dovetail it for a finishing touch, and then we're going to move on to our next ribbon. And I love this ribbon. It's like a little black and white and yellow bee ribbon. And for this one, I'm doing 11 inches, or I'm sorry, 10 inches for this one. And then again, it's the 3 loops, 2 tails, dovetailing at the bottom. And our final and last ribbon segment, I'm going to be doing at 8 inches, but this time I'm only going to do 2 loops and 2 tails. So this is the exact same procedure with each layer, each segment, measuring it, looping it, putting in your pipe cleaner, and then cutting the edges into dovetails. So now I have all 5 segments. I'm going to work from the largest or at the bottom and work my way up for that. So here I'm just prepping my pipe cleaners at the back. I'm going to prep my first segment with my loops at the top, tails at the bottom, and now I'm just going to add my second segment and attaching that with the pipe cleaners that we attached as well. And you just wrap it around, bring it right to the back, twisting it, and then that's going to attach it together. And then I'm going to attach each layer using the same method, twisting out those pipe cleaners around the entire bow at the back, chopping off any excess, but don't chop off those long tails of the pipe cleaners because we're going to use that to attach it to our wreath. And I'm just going to keep going on, adding this beautiful bee ribbon that I love so much. And then our last ribbon is just that 2-bow ribbon where we're going to finish off this big, beautiful bow. Just gorgeous. I love these colors together. And of course, I'm just going to add a whole bunch of hot glue at the back. I love adding hot glue to pipe cleaners just to make sure that they're nice and secured. And after I fluff it, we have our big, beautiful bow ready for our wreath. And for our next attachments, I'm going to cut all of my ribbon at the 14-inch mark. I have 5 different ribbons, different sizes, different patterns, and I'm going to cut each one of them at the 14-inch mark, and we're going to add these to our pipe cleaner stems. Now I'm cutting an abundance of these, approximately 8 to 10 of each. And then I'm going to cut 18 of our bee-themed ribbon for each one of the stems. And for each ribbon as well that I've cut, I'm going to dovetail both ends. So you can just double it up to make it go a little bit quicker because it's a lot of ribbon to cut. And once I have it all done, I have all 5 of my patterns and colors ready. And all I'm going to do is I'm just kind of trying to decide which ones I'm going to do. I'm going to do 3 ribbons per pipe cleaner stem. So again, I said we had 18 of them. Depending on how many styles of ribbon you have, that depends on how many you're going to cut. So all I'm doing is I'm placing them in a crisscross pattern. I'm finding my center, then I'm just going to gather it together in the center and place that into my first pipe cleaner. And then I'm just going to wrap those pipe cleaners around that ribbon bundle. So I have 18 in total of the stems. I have 5 different ribbons. Unfortunately, I didn't take the ribbon counts. I'm so sorry for this wreath because there was just so many ribbons. I just cut a whole bunch and then I pretty much used 3 for each stem. But you can figure out how much you need just by figuring how many stems you have and how much ribbon you want to put in each one. So I've done both the inside and outside with 3 ribbons per stem, and here is the outcome. I just love how full and how vibrant this this all is. Once I have all my ribbon down, I can cut off the excess of those stems just to clean it up a little bit. And now I have my bow and my sign back. I've just glued some pipe cleaners on the back of my sign with some hot glue, let that dry. And now I like to kind of figure out where I'm going to place everything. I knew I wanted to put the welcome sign kind of on an angle, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to do it, and I wanted to put the bow at the bottom somewhere. And what I do is I just kind of place everything. I stand back for a second or two, come back to it, fiddle around with it until I get that placement. Once that's all done and I'm happy with the placement, I'm just going to attach the bow right to the back. You feed those pipe cleaners through it, attach it to the wire, and of course we're going to fluff, fluff, fluff. We have to on Dave's recent things. We have to fluff those bows, and I'm going to attach the sign using the same method. I'm just feeding the pipe cleaners right through the back, attaching them to our wire frame, giving them a couple of really good twists. And then once we have everything attached, guess what I can continue doing? Fluff, fluff, fluff. Oh, that's so funny. Of course, I am loving how this turns out, but I'm just going to add those cute little bees on there. These were found on Amazon, and as soon as I saw them, I had to have them. I thought they were the cutest little thing. Look at how cute they are. They're made out of felt, and I'm just going to put this guy right here. And once they're all down, I'm going to continue fluffing up my bows and my ribbons until my heart's content, because my heart is full with this beautiful welcome bee wreath. I just love it, and I hope you do as well. I love these ribbons together, the black, the white, the yellow. Here it is hanging on my door in my YouTube studio. I just love it. It just screams bumblebee to me. And I hope you do enjoy this wreath as well. Thank you so much for the suggestion of a base wreath and a bumblebee wreath, because I had a blast making this wreath. I'm going to be using the 14-inch wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree and this 10-inch by 10-yard poly Deco Mesh in white, blue, and in red. Some pipe cleaners, you can get these at any dollar store. These wooden stars from the Dollarama, and I'm going to be using spray paint, but if you want, you can totally use white acrylic paint. And of course, I'm going to be using my regular crafting utensils to create this project. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint my stars white. A little tip somebody told me, thank you very much, is to put some masking tape down on wax paper with the sticky side up, and then I'm going to stick the stars on that sticky part, and it's so much easier to paint. So I'm doing 2 rows of my wooden stars, then I'm going to take this out to my garage, give it a quick spray paint a couple of times, and that'll create those white stars for us. And of course, we're going to cut our Deco Mesh today, and our magic number is 10 inches. So we are cutting the Deco Mesh at 10 inches, which is going to create a 10 by 10 square. So I'm doing all the cuts at 10 inches for the white, for the red, and for the blue as well. For our number of cuts that we're going to be doing today, the white Deco Mesh, there's going to be 32 pieces at 10 inches. The blue, there's going to be 21 pieces at 10 inches, and the red, there's going to be 11 pieces at 10 inches. Once we have it all cut, I'm just going to lay my Deco Mesh down with the curled side up. I'm going to turn it such that it creates a little diamond shape, and then that top corner I'm going to bring right down to the bottom. I'm going to hold that there, and I'm going to create a little bit of a triangle here, so we have the flat top and then the pointed bottom, creating that triangle. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my thumb and middle finger down and push out, just stretching that Deco Mesh. And then what I'm going to do is take that corner and bring it towards the thumb, and that's going to fold that right in half there. And then I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees, and I'm going to bring the flap over. So this folded edge is going to meet that other folded edge. So I'm just going to bring it down, lay it on top, and then we're almost done creating that first little petal. You can see the triangle goes to the right hand side. Then I'm going to gather all right at the middle, and there's our first petal almost all made. First, I'm just going to grab a pipe cleaner that I've cut in half, place that right on the bottom there, or in the middle, I should say, and then give it a couple of really good twists. A little tongue-tied there for a second. And then I'm just going to cut that excess Deco Mesh off. We don't need it. It'll be in the way, so I'm just going to cut it off. And there is our first little petal created for our USA petal wreath. I'm going to do the exact same thing again. So we're taking that top corner, bringing it down, creating that beautiful triangle. Place your fingers, stretch it out, bring that corner down to your thumb, rotate it 90 degrees, and then bring those folded edges together. Once that's all done, gather it right in the center. Grab a pipe cleaner cut in half. Just wrap it around where your thumb is and fingers. Give it a couple of really good twists. And then we're just going to cut that excess off so it doesn't create so much bulk. And we have our second petal all done. And of course, I'm going to do the red, the white, and the blue, all with the exact same pattern with the amounts and the cut lengths that I showed you just a little bit earlier on. So here I'm just whipping through all the different colors. And once I have all of my little bundles made, we're going to bring back that wire wreath frame. And I'm going to do 2 sections in the blue, and 4 sections are going to be a mix of the red and the white. So what I'm going to be doing is using all of those wires, but to attach the first one, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the 2 inside wires right here. Then I'm just going to place our little bundle with the pipe cleaners wrapping around the first 2 inside wires, and then I'm just going to twist those pipe cleaners around, securing that in place. And for the second one, I'm going to line it up, but this time I'm going to use the 2 outside circles, and I'm using the same method of attachment. I am just wrapping it around those 2 outside wires and giving it a couple of really good twists, and we have our pattern starting. So we're going to do 2 in a line of the white, and then we're going to do a red that's going to be in the 2 inside circles, or 2 inside wires. And then I'm going to repeat the same pattern with the white, 1 on the 2 inside wires, 1 on the 2 outside wires, and then we'll do a red on the inside 2 wires, so the middle 2 wires. And you can see here I'm working face down. It was a lot easier for me to work face down than to have to flip it over all the time. But here is the pattern that I'm creating. We're doing 2 of the white, 1 of the red, 2 of the white, 1 of the red, so on and so forth until I go all the way around. And here I am completed with the red and white, and now I'm going to do the same pattern but just with a solid blue. And you can see that solid blue with our red and white stripes, making that USA flag really come to life. And when I started fluffing it up, I kind of noticed there was some little spaces right where I'm pointing here with the white and the blue. So what I decided to do is I'm going to add into those spaces those extra bundles that we created. Of course, all these are included in the amounts that I showed you earlier on. The outside frame does have a little bit more circumference area, so that's why I added a little bit more. And you can see here, my stars are all dry. I'm going to take them off the tape, which worked perfectly. So thank you, thank you. I can't remember your names. There was a couple of people who mentioned this little tip and trick. I love it, and I wanted to share it with you guys because it was fantastic. And our final results, I am just going to add some finishing touches with those white stars by gluing them down. And look at this, our red, white, and blue paying tribute to the US flag. And I just love this method and how this wreath turned out using that poly Deco Mesh and those petal methods. And I really hope you enjoyed this red, white, and blue wreath. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this light brown color and I'm going to paint that all over that gold charger. I'm going to get a nice, really good thick coat on there. Once it's all on there, I'm just going to let that dry. Once it's dry, I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper or a block, and I'm just going to distress it a little bit, revealing that gold underneath. And once I'm happy with that distressed look, I'm going to take some Mod Podge, and this is just a matte Mod Podge that I'm using, and I'm going to lay that all over the surface and then on the sides as well. I'm getting a nice coat on there, and then once it dries, it's going to seal that perfectly. And for the fork and spoon, I'm taking a little bit of that orange color with a little bit of the tan color, mixing it together, and then I'm going to paint the front sides and the sides of the fork and spoon. Let that dry, and then I'm just going to take a dark brown color, just put it out just a little bit. I don't need too much here, and then I'm going to dry brush on some distressed looks for this. So I'm using a very small amount of paint. My paint strokes are very, very fast just to get that distressed look on there. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to the spoon, get that all nice and distressed looking. Once that's all dry, I'm going to come back with that sandpaper block, and I'm just going to sand away, even really distressing it a little bit more, exposing some of that wood underneath. And then of course this kind of dilutes the color as well, tones it down just a little bit. And then I'm going to take my ribbon, and I'm going to cut them at the 11-inch mark. So I have the green ribbon and I also have the yellow ribbon. So I'm going to cut both of those at the 11-inch mark. And I'm going to do like a faux bow for this. So again, I'm going to cut 3 pieces at 11 inches for the green, 3 pieces cut for 11 inches at the yellow. So it's a total of 6 pieces cut at 11 inches. Once my cuts are all done, I'm just going to fold them in half. I'm not going to press the middle down. And I'm going to use my stapler for this. You can use hot glue if you want. I do love using the stapler for this so I don't burn my fingers. And you get a little teardrop shape. And I'm going to do that for all of the 6 pieces of ribbon. Do the exact same method, stapling them right at the end so I have a teardrop shape. Now I'm going to get all my supplies together. I'm going to figure out where I'm going to glue down that fork and spoon. For me, I wanted them on a little bit of an angle. So once I get that all done and figured out, I'm going to add that hot glue on there, hold it in place for a little bit, make sure it's nice and secure, and just let that glue dry. Once that's done, I'm going to start adding in my ribbon. And I'm just doing this in kind of like a star shape. So this is kind of like a faux bow. So we don't really have to make a bow here. I'm just gluing those pieces on there. I'm alternating between the green and the yellow, kind of moving it as I go, making sure it looks good, and I'm happy with that. And I just keep adding the glue, keep adding those ribbons on there. And of course, the final step is adding that wall decor on there with a little bit of hot glue. Hold it down in place for a bit, and here is our final result of our DIY number 1 using the Dollar Tree charger plates. I loved how the gold matches or comes through that paint as well. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and the colors are great for fall. You can use this for fall right into Thanksgiving as well. You can put it on one of those plate holders, throw it up in your kitchen, and boom, you have a great little decor for your counter. I'm going to be using a 15-inch working wreath frame along with 21-inch Deco Mesh in yellow and this 10-inch Snowdrift mesh. You can use any type of mesh here, any type of 21-inch mesh for this method, along with these glittery little picks. Happy birthday metal sign. Of course, we have to have a happy birthday sign today. These macaroons, which are the showstopper, and 2.5 and 1.5 inch wired ribbon. And of course, I'm going to be using my regular utensils to create this project today. I am going to start off cutting my Deco Mesh, and our magical number is 10 today. So we are doing all of our cuts at the 10-inch mark. So I'm just laying out my cutting mat, and I'm going to use my rotary cutter and cut that 21-inch Deco Mesh and that 10-inch Deco Mesh at the 10-inch mark. So they'll all be 10-inch lengths. And in total, the yellow is going to be 36 pieces, and the white Deco Mesh is going to be 28 pieces. Those are all the cuts that I'm going to be doing for today's method of the double ribbon method. And to create our little bundles, I'm going to use 2 pieces of Deco Mesh along with a little clip or a clothespin. And my first piece, I am just going to roll it up into a tube. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend it so the 2 ends meet. And then maybe around 2 or 3 inches above the end, I'm just going to squish it together. And that's going to create a loop at one end and then the 2 tails. So that's our little ribbon. So you know those awareness ribbons? That's the look that we're going for here. And with our second piece, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to roll it up into a tube shape. We're going to bend it, meet the ends together, push down with my thumbs, gather the center together to create another one of our little ribbons. So we have a loop and 2 tails. Then we're just going to turn one of them over and place it right on top. Take that little clip off. And then that's going to be our one little bundle with 2 curls and 1 loop at each end. So we're just going to take that right at the center, grab our working wreath frame, open up those stems and place that right in the middle and securing it right in place. And we have our first one done. And now I'm just going to keep going, doing the exact same method for all of the stems, rolling it up, creating our little awareness ribbon type bundle and then attaching it to those stems. And here we have all of the yellow done. I've done the inner and the outer as well, and it's nice and full, nice and bright. And I'm going to come in and roll up that white Deco Mesh as well. Place it in between my fingers. I'm going to roll the second one. So this time I'm using 2 pieces of the 10-inch by 10-inch white snowdrift mesh. Once I have those 2 pieces in my hand, I'm just going to grab the center, place those right into that stem, and give it a good twist as well. So I'm using the yellow 21-inch and the 10-inch in white. Now for the inner ones, I'm doing every single other stem, so every other stem, and on the outside stems, I'm doing every single one. And once I've got that all secured in there, look how beautiful our base wreath is, all ready for our decorations. And to start off, we're going to make our bow. I'm just going to lay it down right next to a ruler, measure over 8 inches, gather that together and keep that held together in my left hand. And then I'm going to measure out 12 inches, gather it together, bring that into my left hand. And now we've created a loop at the top and a tail at the bottom, and we're going to create another loop. We're going to twist it first to ensure the good side still faces up. Measure out that 12 inches, gather it together, bring it to your left hand, hold it there, and then we're going to twist for that good side to face up once more, creating another loop. So we've created 2 loops so far. This is our third at 12 inches. Bring that right back to your left hand again, and now we're going to create an 8-inch tail just by laying it down, measuring it out. I'm going to grab my scissors, cut at that 8-inch mark, and we are almost done with our first little loop. I'm going to put it together and attach that all together with a full-length pipe cleaner. I'm just going to fluff it up a little bit, fold those corners, and then do a little dovetail cut or swallowtail or fishtail, whatever you want to call it. That is our first segment. And for our second segment, I'm going to use a solid purple, and I'm measuring the tail at 7 inches, and I'm measuring the loops at 10 inches. So this is the exact same procedure we did the first time around. This time I'm just using different measurements, the 10-inch loops and the 7-inch tails. We're going to cut at that 7-inch mark, grab a half pipe cleaner, attach that all together using that pipe cleaner, cutting those dovetails, and then moving on to our third bundle, which is going to be a shorter tail and the 8-inch lengths as well for our loops. And again, I'm going to do 3 loops, 2 tails, and I'm going to cut these tails at the 7-inch mark, grabbing that half pipe cleaner, twisting it around, and then creating those dovetails to finish it off. Once I have all 3 pieces together, I'm going to start putting them together just by using those pipe cleaners, wrapping it around the center, and then just twisting it right at the back, making sure it's nice and secure, and cutting off the excess with my scissors. Our final one going on right now, using the same method, just twisting those twist ties at the back, And there is our beautiful bow almost done. I'm just going to fluff it up. Of course, you know it's not a bow unless Dave's doing his fluffing. And then I'm going to take one of those little glittery balls. I just detached it from the pick, glue it right in the center, and then I'm going to flip it over and place some hot glue right on the back side. Now, I am making 3 bows in total for this project, so it's the exact same measurements. It's for 3 bows, and then of course you'll see it being all put together a little bit later on. Now I like to do what I call a dry run, where I just kind of place everything down where I want it to go. I don't glue anything down, and of course I cut off the little pink ball for my bow, and what I'm going to do with the excess is I'm just going to twist it around a glue stick just to give it a little curl so I don't have to cut it off and it looks awkward or weird. This adds to it, and I think it just kind of finishes it off as well, even though I did take off one of those glittery balls for my bows. And once I have placed everything down, I'm going to grab my phone and just take a picture of it. So right now nothing is glued down, nothing's attached. So I'm going to take a picture of it just as a reference, and then I'm going to take everything off and start gluing everything down. So I've got my macaroons right there all glued down, my happy birthday sign, I have some pipe cleaners glued to the back. I'm just going to place those right to the back, twist them around to secure that sign, and then I'm going to cut off some excess of those picks, use my hot glue to glue that all right down in place wherever I want it to go. And I'm going to attach my bows using the same method as the sign, just placing those pipe cleaners through the frame and twisting it on the back. I'm also going to use that photo you'll see right here just to check how I had everything laid out. That is a great tip. I love doing it. I do it all the time after my dry runs to make sure everything is perfect and how I want it. And now, of course, everything's glued down and tied down, and we're just going to fluff, fluff, fluff until our final result. Look at those macaroons right in the center, our huge bows, and of course, we have to have a happy birthday sign for a happy birthday wreath. I love the colors of this. It's so bright, it's so colorful, it's so cheerful. Here it is hanging on my front door. Actually, no, I lied. This is hanging on my studio door, not my front door. But I just love all of these colors. And again, thank you so much to Lori and everyone else at TMI Gifts. Here is that pumpkin wireframe I was talking about a little bit earlier. I'm also going to be using an old black t-shirt that I had laying around, as well as some 6-inch and 10-inch Deco Mesh in various colors that I had in my storage. I thought it'd be a great idea to use this excess Deco Mesh. These witches' legs with little stakes on them, glittery spiders, and then some purple ornaments, some cable ties, pipe cleaners, and of course, I'm going to be using my regular crafting utensils to create this project. I'm going to start off with my pumpkin wire frame and add some pipe cleaners right at those edges where it meets the kind of outside. So there's 6 at the top and 6 at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is, you see I've already attached one on the bottom left, is I'm going to insert the pipe cleaner on one side of the wire and then on the opposite side of the wire as well. So it wraps around that outer wire and that cross wire, and then I'm going to twist it around a couple of times. And that way, as you can see, it's not going to move anywhere. If I just did that one twist, it'll slide all over the place, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to do the exact same thing and attach 6 pipe cleaners. Those are going to be our stems at the bottom. So you see I have the 6 there. I'm going to flip it over, and then I'm going to do the 6 right at the top the exact same way I did the bottoms, just wrapping it around a couple of times and making sure it's nice and secure. And that's our working wreath frame already set up, ready to go, with 6 at the top, 6 at the bottom. I'm also going to take off that wire stem. You don't have to if you totally don't want to. I just decided to take it off, but there was a little bit of really sharp edges, so I'm just going to take some black electrical tape and I'm just going to wrap that around. I love using electrical tape for things like this. You can pull it and stretch it, and it protects your fingers, protects your walls, or wherever you're going to hang this so it doesn't scratch with those sharp edges that I just created. Now our working wreath frame is ready to go, And I'm going to first start cutting off the back panel of my t-shirt. I just really, you can see how jagged the edges are. I didn't make this a pretty cut at all, making sure that it's going to fit all the way around that wire frame. And then I'm going to flip it over and work on the back side, just getting some hot glue on the wire, working in small sections, and then folding that t-shirt over. And that's all I do is I put a little bit of glue down, fold the t-shirt over, and just make sure if you're doing this method or following me along that you do not hide those pipe cleaner stems that we just attached. You can kind of see here I'm working around them, bringing the t-shirt in between those and still having those stems exposed. I want those stems exposed. And then when that's all done, I'm just going to trim up the back a little bit, make it a little bit neater. And once I get all the excess trimmed off, I'm just going to go back and hot glue down some of those excess pieces that are sticking up, making it as neat as possible with my hot glue gun. And there we go. We are all ready. So we do have the top and the bottom, and the top portion of this is where you have that little V at the top. And I'm going to start using my black Deco Mesh. This is a little bit more than a half a roll. I don't know the full measurements of it. I'm sorry. I'm just taking extra rolls from my stash and I'm going to use them today. So this is a 10-inch roll and I'm pointing right now at that V shape. So that's going to be our top portion where the stem used to be. And I'm also pointing to where I am going to start with our Deco Mesh. It's going to be the top left-hand corner. And all I'm going to do to start off is I'm just going to unroll that Deco Mesh a little bit, and then I'm going to gather it together in my fingers right at the edge, squish it together, gather it together nice and tight, and then I'm going to go back to that top left-hand stem, open it up a bit, and then that's where we're going to insert our first Deco Mesh attachment right there. And we're going to twist it around a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure. And then I'm going to bring it down to the bottom left. Now, what I want to make sure on the edge is that the Deco Mesh goes all the way around. So I'm kind of wrapping it around the back, pulling it a little bit tight, but not too tight. And then I'm going to that bottom left-hand stem, and I'm going to wrap that Deco Mesh right around, keeping it nice and tight. So now I'm going to go back up to the top. So I'm kind of doing a zigzag motion to the next available stem. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring that Deco Mesh up. Once I get it nice and secured, I just twist it around a couple of times and that Deco Mesh is secured. And we're going to go back and forth from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top, etc., until I have all of that Deco Mesh laid out and in all of those pipe cleaner stems. And here I'm just finishing off, and you can kind of see I just had the perfect amount of Deco Mesh left over. I couldn't believe my luck. I was getting a little bit nervous, I'm not gonna lie. But here I am, I'm finished with this. And a little finishing touch I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wrap a cable tie right around that Deco Mesh excess. Cut the excess of the cable tie, cut that excess of the Deco Mesh, and that creates just a little bit more of a finishing touch where we have stopped our Deco Mesh. You can see here this cut Deco Mesh right at the beginning is fraying all over the place. I'm going to place that cable tie around, cut off the excess, and it looks a lot neater. And this is our black cauldron all done and ready to decorate. For this Deco Mesh, I'm cutting 7 inches. Now you can use a ruler or you can find a cutting mat like I did, which is 7 inches wide, or you can cut a piece of cardboard 7 inches wide to use this technique to cut your Deco Mesh. This is the 6-inch Dollar Tree Deco Mesh. All I'm doing is wrapping it around, and then once I finished wrapping it around my cutting mat, I'm going to cut both edges, and you'll see how nice and quick of a cut this is. I'm just going to separate everything for the yellow, and I'm actually going to do the same thing with the orange. Again, these were just random pieces that are leftover Deco Mesh that I had. And here we go with the green. I'm going to cut it at 8 inches. So all in all, for our Deco Mesh lengths, I have yellow and orange Dollar Tree Deco Mesh, which is 6 inches. For the yellow, I cut 10 pieces. For the orange, I cut 22, and those are all at 7 inches. And for the 10-inch Deco Mesh, the green one, I'm cutting 22 pieces at 8 inches. Now, your numbers may vary depending on the Deco Mesh you're using and what you have left over. That's what I had, and that's what I'm working with today. And now we're going to create our fire right at the bottom. I'm not being too neat with this. I want it to be kind of crazy and not so neat because it is fire after all, and I wanted to have that fire look. So all I'm really doing with the Deco Mesh is I'm just taking it and I'm crumpling it up together. Some of them I roll a little bit, but majority of them I'm just crumpling them at the bottom. I'm going from yellow to orange and yellow to orange, and just adding those right into my fingers, and that's creating our first little bundle. Then I'm going to start right in the middle with our fire bundle on the middle pipe cleaner stem, just attaching it just by simply twisting those twist ties together, or pipe cleaners, and then I just move on to my next fire bundle. Again, I'm just kind of squishing it all together. I want it to be random. I want it to be kind of crazy looking. Fire is all over the place, so I kind of wanted to have that effect. If you want, you can roll all of your Deco Mesh and do the curly loop method. This is how I decided to do mine, but you are more than welcome to do any type of method that you want. Again, once I have finished attaching them, I'm going to come back with my cable tie and do the exact same thing I did with the black Deco Mesh. Wrap that cable tie really, really tight around the Deco Mesh and then cut the excess Deco Mesh off. You see it kind of just really adds that little finishing touch to it. And of course now my fire is all done. I'm just going to fluff it up a bit, and ooh, that's burning hot. Now it comes time to add those witches' legs. And for mine, they had some sort of styrofoam in the middle. And what I decided to do was use 2 cable ties, one attached to the frame, then feed another one through that and wrap it around, but not too tight, such that I can feed those witches' legs right through. So once I fed them through, I'm going to pull them really nice and tight and make sure that's secure. Cut off the excess. And for this particular one, I had to do the same method right in the middle because it didn't fit the other side of the pumpkin wreath. So I just kind of attached one to the witch's leg, one to the wreath frame, and then I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue right on that wreath frame so that witch's leg doesn't move anywhere and it's nice and secure with those cable ties. And then I do the exact same thing with 2 cable ties attaching that witch's leg. One is right attached to the frame, the other one is in between the cable tie, and then I can feed that witch leg right through that loop I created. And for this one, I want it to be a little offset to the other one. So I want it to look like, you know, one is a little bit deeper in our cauldron liquid than the other leg. So I decided to push it all the way through, about halfway through. And then I did the same thing using my 2 cable ties, attaching one to the frame and one to the witch's leg stem. Pull them really nice and tight to make sure that they're nice and secured and they're not going to go anywhere. And then we have our nice witch's legs all set up, ready to go. I love these witch's legs. They're so much fun. Look at that. And I love how I did the different levels. You can do the same level if you want, or you can do different levels like I did here. It's totally up to you. For our little potion mix in our cauldron, I'm using this green Deco Mesh. And all I'm really going to do is a simple ruffle method for this. Just laying it flat, gathering it together right at the middle. For the first one, or all of them, you can use a clothespin if you want. I prefer to use my fingers, but if you want to use clothespins, just do that as well. I usually put my Deco Mesh right in between my fingers and keep working. I find it works for me. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to layer those ruffles together. And then once that's all layered, I find the middle, find that open stem, and I just attach it by twisting it a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure. I'm going to cut off the excess at this point because I'm not going to use these stems anymore. And then I keep going on using that ruffle method to add all of my potion Deco Mesh onto the top there, right where the witches are falling in. Or I should say the witch. There's only one witch. She has 2 legs. And if you want, you can add a little bit of hot glue on those pipe cleaner stems once you finish them off. I like to do that. And if you want, you can see there, I just did the curly method, mixing it with the ruffle method. You can do, again, like I said, with the fire, any method that you want. I kind of mix the curly method with the ruffle method. I like the combination of the two, and it adds a little bit of interest to your wreath as well. Our fire is done, our little potion is done, the cauldron is done, those witches' legs are right there, and now it's time to add all of our little embellishments. So I have those glittery spiders. I'm only going to use one of them, and I'm also going to use those purple ornaments, just kind of place them around everywhere. It looks like it's kind of spilling over, that potion is spilling over, and once everything's glued down, nice and dry, we have our witch's cauldron wreath with that witch kind of swimming in or falling into her potion, that green potion with the purple bubbles, our black cauldron, and of course the fire right at the bottom, and that creepy little glittery spider. I mean, really, how creepy can a glittery spider be, right? Here's the final result hanging on my studio door, and this just makes me smile, and I hope it makes you smile as well. I'm going to be using this wood wreath frame from the Dollar Tree, along with this 5-inch burlap garland, some thick twine, and of course my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my twine and create a hanger for this wreath. So all I'm doing is I am just kind of estimating the length of the twine that I want, just tying it in knots, and that's how I'm going to hang this wreath on my wreath door hanger. So you can see there, that is how I'm going to hang it. And then I'm just going to add a little hot glue to hold it in place so it doesn't come undone with those knots. And then once I get that all done and dry, I'm going to wrap that wood wreath frame in burlap. So I'm just going to glue it on there, and then I'm going to wrap it around. I'm not too careful or too neat with it. I'm neat as I want to be, but it's not like 100% perfect because I know it's going to be covered. And once I've wrapped everything, I cut off the excess, glue it down, and then I have my base all ready for our little page book attachments. Of course, you can see me cutting off some of the rope from the burlap. It's a little bit messy, but I love burlap anyways. Today, we're going to be cutting that burlap at 5 inches, and I'm going to be using my rotary cutter, and you can see here the burlap width is the 5 inches, so I'm going to be making squares out of it. So it'll be a 5 by 5 square for the burlap. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my rotary cutter like I said. I'm just going to cut a little piece off at the beginning just to make it nice and straight, and then I'm going to continue and cut at that 5-inch mark. So I'm cutting 5 by 5, which are going to create little squares for our little page book attachments. Now, for my wreath that I'm using today, I used and cut 84 pieces cut at 5 inches, and that's approximately 35 feet of burlap. So I used just a little over a roll, and I had a second roll, so I used a little bit from that as well. To create our little burlap page books, I'm going to use a piece of toilet paper, and I'm just going to wrap the bottom around. I'm going to add a little hot glue right at the top, and then I'm going to fold that over, press it just a little bit, and then I'm going to take it off that toilet paper roll really quickly so it doesn't dry. And then that's going to give us our little, like I like to call it, a cannoli here on my channel. So again, I just add a little hot glue right at the top there, fold it over, press it, and then right away I just take it off that toilet paper roll, and that's going to create our little cannoli or attachment to our wreath frame. And of course, I'm going to do this over and over and over again 84 times. Once I've got that all done, I'm going to flip that wreath frame over. Now, this is the face down part, and that little attachment we do with the glue, we want that to face up this time around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little hot glue down onto my wreath frame, fold over that end, and then I'm going to attach that little roll right onto that wreath frame at the back. I'm using my little tool as well so it don't burn my fingers. And then I'm just going to keep going on with that same procedure, just adding those little cannolis on there. I keep saying cannolis, the little rolls on there right at the back. Again, the wreath frame is face down, and then our little rolls have the glued side face up for this first row at the back. And I'm going to continue on all the way around. You can see it all attached here, flipping it over. Now we are face side up, so the good side facing up. I'm going to attach my second row right on the side of that. And how I'm going to do that is, again, that glued side is now facing down because wreath is actually facing up now, so the good side facing up. If that makes sense, I hope that makes sense. All I'm going to do is add a little bit of hot glue right on that folded edge, and then I'm going to just attach that right at the side of our wreath and glue that right together, and that's going to create our second row. So again, we have that glue side facing down, we fold over, and then we're going to glue it as well. Just right along the side, attach it to the side of that wreath frame, and I just use my fingers and my tool as well just to attach it and make sure it's all nice and secured. So that's going to be our second row of the burlap, and once that's all done, I'm going to start on a third roll. So again, I want to make sure that that glue side is facing down and the nice side is facing up. I'm just going to add some hot glue right on the edge there. And for this one, I'm just going to wrap it around the base wreath that we created with wrapping the burlap. So that's that wood base wreath, and I'm just going to attach that on there, and that creates a nice little finishing touch, let's say. And I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue on the other side so that doesn't fan out, and I'm just using this little silicone spatula, which I found at the Dollar Tree. It works great when you're working with hot glue, just like that other tool I use. I just love both of those tools when working with hot glue so I don't burn my fingers. And I'm going to continue wrapping that all the way around, and here you can see that row is all complete. And now I'm just going to do one final row. You can totally stop here if you want with the 3 rows. I wanted just a little bit more, so I added another roll, and I did the exact same procedure as I did with the 3rd row. So I'm just wrapping it around the center and then just adding a little hot glue to make sure it doesn't fall over. And then once that middle section is all done, I'm putting my last one on there. I'm going to fluff it up a little bit because I did flatten it out with my arms as I was gluing everything. So I'm just going to take some time and fluff. You know me. This is Dave's recent things. We have to fluff. So here is our beautiful pagebook burlap wreath. And I'm going to just make a really quick ribbon. Now, I didn't measure anything. I just kind of decided what size I wanted. I had a little bit of this ribbon left over. I cut a large length of it. I'm going to glue it together and make a little disc out of that first piece, and then I'm just going to cut another piece about maybe 4 or 5 inches, and I'm going to roll that together and glue that together as well. So this is the 2 pieces to make our bow portion, and then I'm just going to flip it over, make sure I've got the center, and then I'm going to add a pipe cleaner, twist that a couple of times right at the center, make sure it's nice and secured, and then I'm going to take that other piece that we made, flatten it out, place it right in the center, and that's going to cover the pipe cleaner and just clean up that bow a little bit so it gives us the center of the bow. And of course, I'm going to make some tails for this, and for this I want really long tails. So I just used the rest of the ribbon that I had on my roll. I cut it in half, dovetailed each of the ends of those ribbons, and then I'm going to place them right on top of each other, find the center, squish it together, fold it in a V, and then I'm going to add it right in between those pipe cleaners from our bow that we just created. And I just add the center right there, twist it together a couple of times. We're going to flip it over, and then of course we're going to fluff up our bow a little bit because I cannot resist and make sure our tails are beautiful. And here is our little bow, just to add a little something to our burlap wreath. And here is the finished burlap wreath. This is the page book method. I love burlap. It's very rustic. You do have strings flying everywhere, but that's one thing that I love about the burlap wreath. It is simple, elegant. Here it is on my craft room door with that little bow right at the top. And of course, you can use any bow ribbon that you want for different occasions, Halloween, Christmas, fall, summer. It's a classic wreath that can last a long time and for any occasion. I'm going to start off with my wired wreath frame and full-length pipe cleaners to make a working wreath frame. For this particular working wreath frame, we're going to use the 2 inner wires and the 2 outer wires, and we're going to put 1 right in the middle and 2 at the very end as well. So that's 1 right in the middle too, so I'm doing that one right now. I'm just attaching that pipe cleaner right on there, twisting it around the first 2 wires, making it nice and secured. And then what I'm going to be doing is using the 2 outside wires to attach 2 more stems for this. So the same process, I grab that pipe cleaner, wrap it around the 2 outside wires, and just secure it in place by twisting it. So that is 1 in the middle, 2 on the outside per section, and I'm going to do this 5 more times, so it's a total of 6 sections that I'm completing. And once we're all done, you can see the outer ones, we have a total of 12 stems, and then on the inside a total of 6, and this is our working wreath frame for today. I'm going to take my Deco Mesh and I just layered it. So I'm doing red, and black, just laying it on top of each other. And then I'm just going to gather with my fingers right at the very end. So I'm coming in about 1 inch right from the edge, gathering it all together. And then I'm going to open up the first inside stem, lay that right in there, pull it a little bit tight, and then twist a couple of times to make sure it's nice and secure. And we've got our first attachment done, and I'm just going to cut the excess off just to clean it up just a little bit. I like to do that. It's not necessary, but you totally can do it if you want. I'm going to be using 9-inch lengths today, so I am just going to pull out that Deco Mesh. I'm starting at the 5-inch and I'm going to gather it at the 14-inch, and that's my 9 inches. Then we're going to go to the next available inner pipe cleaner stem and just place where we gathered that Deco Mesh right in between the 2 pipe cleaner stems. Going to twist it a couple of times and we have our first attachment. We are making a poof wreath method today, and again I'm using 9 inches. I'm going to pull out that Deco Mesh, gather it together, and then where I've gathered it, I'm going to place it right in between my next open pipe cleaner stems, and I'm going to twist those around a couple of times. I'm going to continue that same process all the way on the inside of my Deco Mesh, measuring out the 9 inches, gathering it, and placing it right in between those 2 pipe cleaners. For the last one, I'm going to attach it to the same pipe cleaner stem where we started, and now I'm going to move to the outside wire. You'll have an additional stem right here, and we kind of want to go to that, but we're not going to. We are going to the next pipe cleaner stem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from that inner one to the next available +1 pipe cleaner stem. We're going to measure out our 9 inches. We're going to forget about that first one, and then we're going to move to the second one. The reason for that is we want all of our poofs to stay the same size. If we go to that closest one, our poof is going to be a little bit smaller. So we want it nice and even. So we're just going to skip that first one and then go to the next. Once I finish doing all of the outside, I'm on my last little poof that I'm creating. I'm cutting off that excess after I measured my 9 inches, and now I'm going to attach that to the first one we did on the outside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull those poofs apart just a little bit so the black and the red are both exposed, so we have both of those beautiful colors showing, and I'm going to do that all the way around our wreath. So there we have our poof method all done for our base wreath. Now it's time to decorate. And for this, I'm going to be adding some ribbon, and I'm cutting all of my ribbon at the 10-inch mark. So I have this red and black checkered ribbon, again cutting it at the 10-inch mark. I have this sheer glittery red ribbon, and I also have this solid red glittery ribbon, all cuts at 10 inches. For this particular wreath, I cut ribbon number 1, 36 pieces at 10 inches. Ribbon number 2, 6 pieces at 10 inches, and ribbon number 3, 6 pieces cut at the 10-inch mark. Now you can do as many ribbons as you want per bundle. That's just my choice for my wreath today. And then I'm going to come through and I'm going to cut on an angle all of my ribbon just to dovetail it. Now you can do 2 at a time like I'm showing you here. If you want, that speeds up the process a little bit. And once all of that is done, I have my ribbon all cut, all dovetailed, ready to attach to my wreath. And we're going to attach right in between those pipe cleaner stems where we attached our Deco Mesh previously. I'm going to take 2 of those 2.5-inch wired ribbon, the black and the red, and then I'm going to take a red glittery ribbon, lay that on top in a crisscross pattern, gather it together with my fingers, and then I'm going to open up that pipe cleaner stem, and then I'm just going to place that right in the center, making sure it's right in there in between those 2 pipe cleaner stems, and then I'm just going to twist it a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure. I'm not going to fluff anything right now. I'm just going to move on to the next ribbon attachment. And for me, I'm going to alternate between adding the sheer ribbon and the glitter ribbon. This one here, I'm just adding 2 of the checkered ribbon on my next available pipe cleaner stem. And then when I move to the next one on the right hand side, I'm going to add the 2 checkered patterns along with that sheer ribbon. And that'll be the pattern that I'm going to be working with today. Again, you can choose any ribbon, any color, any pattern that you want, how many ribbons you want to put into each pipe cleaner stem. It's totally your personal choice. This is the way I went today. I'm just alternating between adding those 1.5-inch wired ribbon or leaving it without. So here I am just attaching it right on the outside, and then I'm going to come into the inside as well, attaching all of those ribbons. Once that's all done, here we go. We have our ribbons attached, pipe cleaner stem still intact. I'm going to cut those off. I didn't show you here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add little Christmas ornaments right on top of where our pipe cleaner stems are. So I've cut those pipe cleaner stems off, glued on some of those Christmas baubles, and now, of course, our favorite thing to do on my channel is the fluffing. I'm gonna fluff to my heart's content, and there is our beautiful wreath all ready for that sign that we're gonna add on. Or am I gonna add it on? I'll show you a little process that I went through. I couldn't figure out if I wanted to add this sign or not. I put it down and I thought, I don't think it goes. So then I was on a rampage. Now I'm like, okay, does this go with the birds? No, the red birds aren't gonna fit. The penguin didn't fit. I thought he was really cute. Poinsettias didn't work. And then, of course, I keep trying different signs, different items. I just, in the end, couldn't really figure out what I wanted to put on this wreath. I found some white doves, and that didn't work either. I found this bow that I had made previously for a previous project. That didn't work out. In the end, I did one last thing, was I found this little topper for the cookie tin, and then I thought, you know what? This looks amazing just the way it is. It's a very simple wreath. It doesn't scream Christmas or slap Christmas in your face. It's very simple, yet, you know what? Elegant and beautiful right at the same time. We have little hints of Christmas in there, which I absolutely love. And here it is hanging on my door, and I am so happy I didn't add that sign on there or any other embellishment. What would your choice be? Would you add or just leave it alone as well?